I'm Ashley Treslane, the host of Food for Life, and this is my co-host, Julie McGill, and we are so excited to have you back this week. Julie always reminds me that I get so excited about the show, I forget to tell you guys who we are because not everyone watches us every week or maybe discovering us for the first time. I am a personal chef and food educator and food blogger on occasion, sometimes, maybe, always. I don't know. I haven't decided how much of that I'm going to pursue. But Julie is a food blogger and a mom. But my main passion is cooking and making people healthy through food, healthy food, no less, because of some health issues I've had. Julie is a mom that likes to get food on the plate as quick as possible, right?
You know, being a busy mom, it's kind of like you're so busy running around every single day that if you can make a quality meal and kind of craft it and put it all together, it's that moment of being like, nailed it. So in this busy world, it's kind of the one thing every day that brings the family together. So it means a lot to me. But we absolutely love everyone that comes to watch Food for Life, and we want to have more fun with you outside of the show. So our Instagram is up and running, and we would love to come see you there. We have bonus content there. We do lives. We have all sorts of stuff. So come DM us, come interact with us. We want to hear from you.
Okay, and we have that up. And one other thing, please subscribe to our YouTube channel for any extra content and things that we will be starting to put up in the new year and as the year progresses. So please subscribe to us. See, right there. Look, I made a cool QR code. I feel special because I figured out a tech thing. Okay, so I'm going to take that down. And our guest today is the fabulous Anne Scottlin. I met Anne earlier this year. She is so awesome and so amazing and such a bright light, and I can't wait for you all to meet her. So let's welcome Anne into the show. Hi, Anne. How are you today?
Hi, Ashley. Hi, Jill. Did I say Jill? I saw McGill. Julie. Hi, Ashley.
Julie. The funny thing about that is that
right off the bat, should I just say? I think it should be Jill McGill. That would be
good. I never had this issue until I got married 15 years ago because my maiden name was different. So once I married my husband, people started calling me Jill, and I just rocked with
it. So it is so crazy, right? You're just like, and then you're like, wait, what?
Genetically, the way it looks. So don't even worry. And then also, I respond to almost anything. But anyway, Anne, we're so happy that you are here today. We'd love to hear. Yeah, we'd love to hear more about you and.
So tell us who you are and what you do. We love to hear it from our guests in our own words, right, Julie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I am a business consultant and coach, and my primary focus is around strategy, business planning, and a meta mindset, which is a program I developed and also work with my partner, Dr. Lyman Montgomery. So bringing people to the next level with their business, getting them on a plan that helps them monetizing sooner, and giving them measurable results along the way. It's not like, oh, just let's be happy and feel good. It's like, let's make some money. Let's get on with the business side, because we all have to survive, and we can't just do good deeds for the rest of forever and never get paid so we can pay our own bills. So that's what I do. That I came from, well, I'll just say other careers I've had before this. Was an actress in Hollywood for 10 years. I was raised in a very unusual lifestyle, but food has always been important to me. I love food.
Yes. So I also want to welcome you because you have now become a fellow E360 host just like us.
Yay.
Welcome to the family.
Yay. So make sure you check out Anne's show. And what channel are you on E360 TV?
Yeah, I am on and now you're going to put me on the spot because we've been on there for 2 weeks. So I will just say I'm on 360. I have to tell you now. My assistant is going to kill me right now that I just forgot. So
maybe be texting you while we're doing the show. It's okay.
New fresh things, whatever that is. So
yes, I think that's Fresh Takes or something
Thank
like
you.
that.
Oh my God. What is it Friday? I'm like, somebody help me.
I know. It's like one of those days. It's okay. We all have our moments.
Months.
Has it been a long week for you?
That's why I'm energizing.
Yes.
So, yes.
So Julie, yes, we are on Fresh Takes. And the show is Global Socialpreneurs, which is another passion of mine. My company is called the Global Impact League. So all that work I do for businesses and individuals, I work with pretty much any entrepreneur or small business person, but my passion project area is social entrepreneurship, and that is making social or environmental impact for profit. So the nonprofit model has been around a really long time. There's nothing necessarily wrong with some of it. There are things wrong with parts of it. But I think a sustainable plan on every country, on every level around the world is social entrepreneurship. So I get excited about that. And on our show, we have guests on from all over the world talking about what they're doing as social entrepreneurs. So it's really exciting. So we're Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern, if anyone wants to jump on there.
Awesome. There we go. See, we gave Anna free
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we have to support each other as fellow hosts. Now, I want to go back in your story when you were telling us, like, you're a fellow East Coast girl, yes?
No, actually, I'm as west as you get. I'm born in Seattle.
But didn't you? I thought you grew up out east.
No, I grew up in Washington State. I live near Atlanta.
Even I'm having a Friday. Why did I get that so backwards?
It's just because I'm a chameleon. Wherever I am, I'm local. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there you go. Your acting skills.
The actress comes out. No, I was a West Coast girl. I did live in the Southeast for a while in Atlanta. I had gone to a university out there, got married out there. So I did spend some time there. And then I've spent the majority of my life in California, but still.
Yeah, that I know.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about when we connected. You told me you grew up in a little bit of a strict kind of odd upbringing and that you grew up in a mostly vegetarian household.
Yes, actually. So I did. I grew up in a very unusual environment. Sort of a right-wing cult, not one you would probably recognize, but very, very strict, very isolated, homeschooled till I was 16. And by that, I mean me and my two brothers, like in the middle of nowhere. So like very, very isolated, no television, no radio, basically no social interaction. So very interesting. But part of that mindset that my parents, who were both highly educated, so it was sort of a one-off, nobody could understand why they did what they did, was around health. And part of the religious emphasis was around health specifically. And vegetarianism was really key. So at the beginning, they kind of converted into this. I was about 2 years old. So at the very beginning, we were vegetarians. So I actually know what ovo-lacto means. That means we ate milk and eggs, but no fish, poultry, meat. And then after a couple more years, probably by the time I was 6 or 7, we went to full vegan. My mom was a home economic teacher by trade. She had a master's in home economics. And so she was already really well versed in the concepts of nutrition, of healthy cooking. So I literally grew up on like a 1-foot stool in the kitchen cooking with her from the time I was like 5 and messing up my own recipes that I cooked when she wasn't around by the time I was like 6. So I fell in love with cooking. I fell in love with food. And I would say I've evolved in how you can make vegan food taste good, because as a child, it wasn't so much. It wasn't prepared in the most ingenious and interesting ways. But now I take pride in the fact that, you can learn to cook that way. It's not as hard as you think, and it can become instinctive. Some people really want to follow a recipe, and that's fine. My mom still does. I drive her crazy because I cook from my head. And then she's like, well, how much of a teaspoon did you put in? And I'm like, oh, mama, just do it to taste. No, but how much? So that got me excited about food.
That's too funny. It's really funny that you say that about how like you learned in the kitchen, and a lot of families learn that way. But as a vegetarian, now it's more widely accepted. But our parents all had the same traditions. You basically cook a vegetable until it dies, or you boil it to death, or like you cook meat or fish or vegetables. Basically, everything is mushy. Like everything is one texture, or it doesn't have a lot of flavor or anything, because that is what they learned, and it's generational, and it just keeps getting passed down. We fortunately have learned to cook better, right?
Yeah. Are there any meals, Anne, that you like specifically remember from your childhood that was like a regular meal that you guys would have that you think back to?
Yes, with mixed fond and not fondness. One of the things was lentil loaf, which was basically meatloaf made out of lentils. So you can see how it wouldn't be necessarily awful. You would have garlic, onions, probably olive oil, carrots, maybe a little potato, no potatoes, and then no eggs. So I don't know what the binder was, but then cooked lentils and then bake it. It was really dry, but it was good. It was wholesome legumes. It was healthy food, but there was kind of that, okay, here's another one. So I was a little spoiled maybe because we got homemade bread a lot. My mom would grind her own whole wheat and use 100% whole wheat flour.
Wait, can you back up? Because I'm fascinated by this. Can you tell me your mom's process for making her own flour? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, so she did it pretty simply. Sometimes she bought it ground from someone local, and sometimes she would literally do it like in the food, like in a really high quality food processor. Because if you do it for long enough and you have a really powerful motor, it will make flour. But it was kind of grainy. Can I just say? It's like, I'm not going to say nutty because nuts crush. I'm going to say it was grainy. Like it was kind of crunchy when you'd hit those little nubbins. But she never quite mastered because the doughs she made were so heavy. They would when they were done, they'd fill half the bread pan. So we're eating these kind of little Melba toast things. It was so heavy, like a loaf of bread was oh. So it was nutritious. We had avocado or homemade sugar-free jam on it or something. But yeah, so again, it wasn't like I was starving by any means, but I've learned that you can sort of have it all now with the tools and the new cooking techniques that people like Ashley and guys teach.
That's too funny. It's so weird, when everyone's like, oh no, you'll never make anything good if you make it vegan or this or that. But then I think of the disasters that happen when you don't do things right. And then you're eating that dense, dark loaf of something and you're like, oh my God, that's awful. But you keep a really healthy lifestyle now. You're very active. You do a lot of cool things, right?
Yeah. I love the outdoors. I'm always kayaking, hiking, mountain biking. I live near nature, near the mountains. So I get to do that stuff all the time, skiing in the winter. So yeah, so outdoors is sort of I love being outdoors. Part of that is growing up outdoors with nothing else going on in my world other than farming and growing our own food as a child. But I kind of I have a brother who hates the outdoors because he's like, no. I'm if I don't get my outdoor fix, I kind of start, I lose my grounded sense. So I love being outside. I love gardening when I can. Yeah, so staying really active, staying really healthy, drinking lots of really clean, healthy water. My diet fluctuates depending on kind of what my objectives are at the time. So, after last winter, I did a vegetarian keto for a little while, just for, months to kind of shed a couple winter pounds. It worked very well. And then I can kind of go back to my normal lifestyle, which is 99.9% vegetarian. I mean, maybe once a year I eat fish or chicken. I actually wish I could eat it more. My problem is I don't like meat. I don't like it at all. I don't like the taste. I don't like the texture. And I was the sort of mentality around it growing up, which my parents don't have, by the way, because once in a blue moon, they'll go out on their anniversary and dad will get a steak and mom will get a piece of chicken. And I'm like, that is freaking so unfair because they grew up on meat. But to me, it was something really vile that you shouldn't eat. And so just that, it never really took hold. So I have to be more creative with my protein sources.
It's really weird about the things that stick with us from when we're kids. It just, I went to Catholic school my whole life. So there's things that when I go to church for weddings or funerals and it just sticks with me, the practicing of the mass or the words and the prayers, things like that, or the beliefs that stick with you. And you're like, no, where did this come from? This isn't wrong. I'm totally fine. This isn't, everyone else can do this. Why can't I?
I know, it kind of you get into an environment that kind of puts you in a time warp. And it's really interesting how the whole body reacts kind of viscerally to that environment. And you literally start thinking different just because your body's in an environment that has basically its own memory. It's really fascinating. I mean, in one of my other lives, I'm going to do psychology, sociology, you name it. I already did history and medieval history, and I just can't learn enough in one lifetime, apparently. But I think it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, the study of the human mind has so much to do with the human body, and people tend to forget that.
So how did you get from the way you grew up to be an actress in Hollywood to helping people with their business and then trying to make a global impact? Like, there's so many, it's kind of like going like this on a map somewhere.
I was going to ask something similarly as well, because I'm curious, like, what did you want to be like when you grew up in that type of environment? And like, how did you transition out to a different life? Like, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Not easily. So, I was the firstborn, sort of like type A, Capricorn, whatever you want to say, high achiever. And so in that environment, I just felt like I could outperform everyone in religious activities. Like I could be better at everything than everybody else, right? Like I was teaching like adult Sunday school kind of things by the time I was like 12. So I was just like, okay, I'll just be an adult. Plus I didn't have any peers. My brothers were much younger than me. So I'm like, I'll just be an adult. So by the time I was about 12, I was just pretty much an adult, but living in a very strange world. My big coming out was the year I was 16 when I finally got to go to a high school. However, it was a private, extremely conservative Christian high school with about 60 students. That was the whole high school. So still, I thought I had like hit the jackpot and I had like friends and there was a social life and I was just like, this is amazing. So that was sort of the first little step out. After that, I went to a very conservative Christian college in the South, which is how I ended up out there. And then also met my first husband there. And was very young, got married at like 21, moved out of my college dorm straight into his house when we got married. And that was it. So I had no experience around being self-supporting, working for myself, having my own car, having my own house, having even the knowledge that I could support myself viably by myself. And I think that was one of the greatest sort of weaknesses that came out of my childhood was this idea that you had to be dependent on other people and you had a role to play in a sort of a patriarchal system. And you were always kind of down here and you made the rest of the world work for the people up here. And so it flowed in like, he was from my faith and it flowed. It seemed like the natural alternative. He seemed like a good catch, and he wasn't a horrible person. But towards the end, I started realizing every coin has two sides. And a lot of the things that like being a high achiever, a really hard worker also made him a workaholic, also made him just kind of an adrenaline junkie. And so he never quite had enough of anything. And ultimately found out that he was living multiple lives in other states with other homes and women and cars that I didn't know anything about. And so coming from such a sheltered background, I just didn't even see it coming. I was just a sitting duck. I felt so ignorant and so stupid. I'm just going to use the word because that is how I felt. I was like, and I knew I was a smart person. So I'm like, I don't understand. How could I be like, take it? Like how, So my world kind of fell apart at that point when I hired a detective to catch him because it was impossible. I filed for divorce. But then my whole kind of, Ashley was talking about spiritual, how you grew up in church and childhood and how those things stick. And so my whole worldview really got shaken to death at that point because I was like, my parents were like, not particularly, no one in my family had ever been divorced. They were still very religious, still are today. The religious leadership in my community was not supportive. They're like, well, you have to get back together. I'm just like, what planet do you people live on? Like what? This isn't even smart or logical. Like, I don't understand. So then I'm like, well, is there even a higher power? Like, not for discussion for another day, but like, I just kind of fell apart, like physically, mentally, emotionally. I had bleeding ulcers. I was just very, very sick. So at that point, I moved back to the West Coast, which was kind of home. And then a quick transition into how did it become an impact for others? Well, it started with some advice someone had given me, a mentor had given me when I was, I think, in college. A woman had said, if you ever get to this position in your life where you just can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, you just can't get out of the depression, you just can't get out of the like paralyzed state. She's like, that's the time that you have to go start helping others and giving back to them. Because when you put yourself in perspective and you start seeing the payoff of helping other people, that gives you a reason to be again. It gives you a reason to live. It gives you a reason to focus. So I got involved in things like Amnesty International and a lot of other sort of nonprofit organizations. And really it pulled me up. Like now I have purpose. Now I'm helping women struggling against unbelievable odds living in other countries, the Middle East, wherever in the world. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so fortunate. I'm so grateful. And I can use my opportunities here to make a difference. So that is, I'll let you guys talk and so I can breathe. But that was how, now we're approaching Hollywood, but that was how I got really vested in impact.
I think it's really poignant that you say that, because I was just talking to somebody yesterday who was going through a very difficult time. Their car got repossessed. They were close to losing their house and had no money. Like, it's just this situation. And it just makes you think, my worst day is someone's best day, and like how lucky we are that our bad days are how they are, and someone always has it worse. So the fact that you're touching, especially, I'm very passionate about women and women's empowerment, and just the fact that even being in the US, we have a different platform than other women do. You've got to see a lot, with the people that you're helping. And it's incredible, when you really think about what other people are going through.
I've always found that, I don't know if it was something in my faith or something we learned in school about giving back. And even in my worst times, I've always given back and always volunteered for things. Even when I was physically, like literally almost unable to, I still did. And I guess maybe doing that has changed my perspective in a way. Like even when I'm suffering, it still changes how you look at the world, how you see the world. And since I work with kids mostly when I do it, I don't know, I guess the perspective of seeing kids suffering compared to your suffering, you're like, you're an adult, get your life in order, fix your shit and move on.
Yeah. Especially when you look at kids or anyone who's struggling like that. And also just the psychology of taking the focus off yourself, which is kind of a contradiction in terms, because we're also supposed to do self-care and take care of ourselves and pay attention to ourselves, which is absolutely true. Oops, I had to, mom's calling, decline for the moment. That would be fun.
We were talking about
her. But the psychology of it, just getting out of that, most of us are the most depressed when we're the most self-focused. And that doesn't mean that the self-focus is unnatural or wrong, because you could have limiting situation, disease, family breakup, so many things. It just means you can't pull out of that. Now, it's not to just cover it up, but it's also to give yourself some light at the end of the tunnel, to give yourself other reasons to get out of bed in the morning than just your survival. Because when you're just living in survival, it's not fun. You guys know, I mean, Ashley, with health and everything else, when you're just living from survival and it's just about you, it gets pretty dark pretty quick.
It can, yeah.
And
so now your next step was Hollywood, which going from conservative to a life-rocking event. So would you say, like, I'm just going to put it all out there, I'm going to be somebody else for a little while?
Or how did you even, if you grew up in a traditional household with, like, I think you said no TV as well, like, how did you even find Hollywood? Like, how did that window open for you? Like,
that's excellent, actually. Good questions all. So from I think from the growing up part. So what's interesting is I didn't have any historical background around film or movies. I had the TV for the first time when I moved into my first husband's house at 21 or whatever, like in my early 20s. So I spent several years just binge watching like everything that had ever been made, more or less, to like watching black and white stuff. Like, who is it? What is all this? It wasn't like I hadn't seen a few movies by then, but really no consistent television at all. So I really, realized I was fascinated by the art of acting. I'm a very creative, artistic person by nature. I mean, I did write my first play when I was 10. I starred in it, obviously, because I was homeschooling. But I did write my first play spontaneously, and I've always written all my life.
What was it called? What was it called, your first play?
Well, it was a Christmas play, so it was just the Christmas story.
Okay.
I was Mary. But there were other characters that I, forced into performing with me. But always written stories, told stories. I'm kind of like a natural storyteller. I used to tell my brother's stories even when I was a kid. I would just make them up off the top of my head, like long continued stories. So stories were always really fascinating to me. In college, I'd studied history, story again, like people and why they do the things they do. So after I'd moved back to West Coast and I'd gone back to graduate school because that hadn't been supported by my ex. And so I went back to graduate school and I was getting my graduate degree in medieval history, which is people are like, what? Well, there's a total geek academic side of me that seems insatiable. Like I said, I can't stop learning. So, but I was going to be a history professor. I was like, this is something I love. I can do it. I can make a living at it. It would be great. I love teaching, coaching. These are my gifts naturally already. So why not just do it in an area that I love? Unfortunately, I graduated from grad school right in the middle of the first of our financial recession. And the tenured people were barely keeping their jobs at that point. Like to get a job was out of the question. So as I'm like, now what? Do I just teach high school? But that wasn't what I had in mind. And then I saw in my university on a bulletin board, there was one of those posters that you see in the college hall. One of them was an audition for a play. And I'm like, well, that could be sort of like an interesting side gig. Like maybe I could make money doing that. And it was for a Greek play called Lysistrata, which is literally like 600 BC play. And it's about a woman. It's about a woman named Lysistrata, and basically the make a long story short, the Greek men are not, the Greek and Spartan men, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not keeping the country together. So she leads the women in revolt to basically kick their asses and say, we're taking our country back and you guys are going to fall in line. I'm like, ooh, I like this. So, so anyway, I auditioned. I'd never done anything, and it was a small production, to be fair, but I got cast in the lead role. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I spent, like months trying to learn this 70-page, it's like speaking old Shakespearean, because of course it's Greek, but then it's translated into kind of Shakespearean. Like, it was just, how do you even memorize that? And after that, I just started like, well, there was kind of on hold with this whole professor career. So I'm like, well, let's play. Let's see what, I started taking an acting class. I started getting an agent. I started doing commercials. At that point, I was in San Francisco area. And then I started teaching acting classes, and then I started teaching the business of acting, which again, the coach comes out like I can't seem to suppress it. I've been an entrepreneur in some form my whole life. And then ultimately I was like, well, it's why not like go to Hollywood just for fun. I mean, I had made a choice in my first marriage to not have kids, or it was still kind of up in the air maybe when I got divorced. And when I fortunately remarried to a wonderful, wonderful human being, I was like, that was like my news on the second date. I'm like, just so you know, I'm not having kids. So, okay, if I never see you again, I will totally understand. But I had that freedom is what I'm saying. I think for me, it was about reclaiming a childhood I never had. And I'm like, I can't be more responsible than I already am. Like, I have to have some freedom. I have to explore life. I want to doing things that, actors and actresses are doing at 16, as a full grown adult and on our second marriage. It's like, well, that's crazy, but why not? So that's how I ended up in Hollywood. It's a crazy rat race. It was before Me Too. It was very, very, very hard, but also had a lot of fun. Shot in a lot of independent feature films, small films, shot movies in Europe, did commercials, and mostly, like most actors, sat around waiting for more work. At that point, is when I said, okay, this is not, I need money, so I'm going to go back into coaching. And instead of just coaching actors and creatives, which was very second nature to me, I'm going to start coaching like the real business side of things to people. And so I went to Santa Barbara Executive College of Coaching, got my certifications, and then started coaching. And I've been doing that for many years now. And it's so satisfying. I love it so much. And it's literally what brought me to this and to making an impact in people's businesses and their lives. I'm like, I'm like your biggest fan. People that work with me, like that's the thing. You can hardly get rid of me. Like I'm your biggest fan. I am so invested in their success. We have so much fun. So that's fun for me. And I mean, like Ashley and you guys, like cooking. I mean, when you're doing that with people that you want to help and care about, like there's just nothing better.
Where does your motivation come from? Like you have such a bright, beautiful story. Like what is it that drives you? And other than your love of medieval history, like what gets you there?
I would have to say that's a really good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that specifically. And I think it, honestly, genuinely a love of people. I just love people. I also love animals. I love living beings so much. And if there's anything I can do to make their life a little easier than mine's been in any particular way, if I can give them the support and tools that they didn't have, I seem to have found a way to do almost everything the hard way my whole entire life.
Hi, me over here. I do that. Everything the hard way.
Yeah, okay. So I'm like, maybe people will pay me to save them from not having to do everything the hard way. And they do. So it's like, but I'm just, people's biggest fan. I think something Ashley said earlier about kind of coming from that background that you're supposed to help people or make a difference, even if that was a religious thing to begin with. Somehow that was deeply ingrained in me though, like that never left. And so finding ways to do that for me, yes, we all have to make a living, but it's never been about just getting super crazy rich or making tons and tons of money. It's more, what do I need to make to have a comfortable life that I enjoy? But what kind of impact am I making? I want to see people's lives get better. I want to see animals' lives get better. That's what gets me up in the morning, gets me excited.
My mom is a psychologist and has helped countless people. And I always worked in corporate America. And she was like, you have to think about the impact you're making on this world. And I was like, Mom, it's capitalism. I'm like, we're raising a stock race. I'm like, there's nothing feel good about this. I'm like, we're two different mindsets, in there. So, but
that's funny.
You've always had a way about you that I totally understand the experiencing things as an adult that you should have when you were younger, because I was sick all through my 20s. So I think a little bit later in my 30s, when I finally was less sick, I started experiencing things and doing things that were not typical. It's I learned in a later set of life, and at my age now, I'm I'm behind in some way almost, because I didn't experience those things because I was so sick. I didn't have that kind of life. So you start wanting to fix that inner child thing of you, experiencing all the things you didn't get to. I mean, I really don't want to be a drunk 21-year-old again. I just want to experience those life things.
So I'll tell you a funny story about that. I didn't grow up doing Easter egg hunts in my house as a kid. And when I married my husband, who's Irish Catholic, the first thing I said, I was like, do you guys do Easter egg hunts? And he was like, we haven't done those probably since we were about 10 years old. So the first year we got together, his mom hid eggs. I was well into my 20s at that point, and I was the only one running around the yard getting the eggs and stuff. And that was one of my moments that I lived I was so excited.
I love that. Same. We didn't do Easter. We barely did Christmas. It was a 5% Christmas compared to what most people would do. And so, I was really excited when I was living in the South. They know how to do the holidays.
Oh yeah,
Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, every single one. It's just everybody decorate. It's just so fun. So I had fun living there for a while because I kind of got to do all that. I was going to other people's Easter egg hunts, and mostly they were for adults, but I was the one who was the most excited, like you say, because you're just I didn't get to do this. But even I still go down every slide I pass at parks for kids, as long as I don't freak the parents out. Otherwise, I'll skip it. Who's the weird one going down the slide?
I was recently in a bar in London, and it had a slide in it, and I was I'm going down. I was this is happening. And then my team was standing there, and I was guys, I went down the slide. I was this is great. So it's you're like me. It's enjoy life. Go down the slide. Just do it.
What's the point?
What do you do?
Unless you can enjoy it.
As far as the holidays and stuff and giving back and the things you miss, do you go big? My neighbor down the street, it's not even December yet, and he went full on Griswold already.
That's amazing. Yeah. No, I love the holidays. It depends on the year. Since I don't have kids, it's more motivating to decorate if there's family coming. So like last year I went all out because my brother and his wife and his 3 kids all came, and my husband and me, and it's not like our house is that big. So 7 was a lot. Plus I have 3 dogs. So it was a lot. But that was just really fun. Like this year I've been traveling this whole year, and I'm just like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna put up something like tasteful around the fireplace, and that's it for this time. But we will have good food because there's always good food. But I would love to hear what some of you guys like to. What are some of your favorite meals this time of year?
Before we do that, how do you think that we could all give back as business owners, as people during this time of the year? Because there's so many different ways, like to just give a donation to a charity, and if that's all you can do, do it. If you want to give your time, but what are some creative ways to do that so that people can feel like they're sharing the wealth with others?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You're asking a person who's going to give you a specific answer. So this is like the first answer that most people will think of. But what I'll say is experiment with the thoughts either for this holidays or next time around social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship doesn't have to be a profession. It can be a side gig. The principle is, how can you make money by helping other people make money? That's the simplest way. It's not just about money. It could be about having food for people who don't have enough to eat. Or it could be about gifts. It could be about helping parents. You know, parents are going to know what their kids need more for the holidays than someone else buying them gifts, right? So how could you maybe throw some odd jobs out for someone who might want a little extra work at this time of year? You know, do your spring cleaning early, or find other ways to kind of. And to me, it's like, yes, charitable giving is an amazing thing and it has a definite place, but empowering people makes them feel good, and it makes you feel even better because you're like, they felt good because they earned it. They get to spend it. There's a satisfaction of spending the money you earn as opposed to just getting a handout. It's just a different experience. And there's plenty of handouts available in this country if people are willing to accept them. But giving them a more of an opportunity, I think, is a fun way. Or, you know, having a bake sale, inviting, let's just say we're talking about cooking, inviting people to participate who like to bake, regardless of their socioeconomic level. And, you know, maybe 10% of your profits go to something like the Cooking for Kids project or something. At 90% is split between the people who participate. So they bake it, they make some money. It's not just for a cause like a charity. It's like also for them. You're like, we're going to bake these things. It's a side project. I can do it on a Saturday. We're going to have a bake sale. We could even take orders. How cool would that be? And then everybody gets to profit from it. So I encourage people to look for those kind of new and creative, kind of out of the box opportunities.
I recently was at the grocery store and there was a group of Cub Scouts, obviously trying to get donations, and they did the most creative thing. Most people are like, sorry, I don't have cash. They had little things that were cut out with their little shopping list on it. They're like, oh, but you can, when you go inside, they're like, can you pick up this item for $1 and bring it out to us? They had carts and carts and carts full of groceries. And I was like, that is genius in there. And everyone was in the store with their little list helping them out. So
that is awesome.
You hit upon something. Get creative.
Yes. Very creative and fun. And the people got more pleasure out of putting the stuff in their cart than they did just giving them $10 or $20. You know, there's just.
We're in such a cashless society that like now if people are like, oh, here, you got $1 now. And you're like, no, I don't actually have $1. I might have some change at the bottom of my purse.
Yeah. And then I took the list afterwards and I handed it back to the little boy. And I said, this way you can actually recycle it with somebody else. Like, I'm not just throwing it out. The next people that come in. And I just thought that then I actually went to another grocery store the same day and there was another trip and they weren't doing that. And I was like, if they had just done what the other one, they would have had such a more fruitful collection in it. But I just thought that was genius and just so entrepreneurial for them.
Business oriented parent that volunteers.
Yeah. Well, and just physically getting involved, like you both were saying, just sort of becoming part of the process as opposed to just throwing money at it. You know, we're fortunate to have the extra cash to throw at things, if you want to call it that, and make an impact. And that's great sometimes, you know, whether that's $2 or $200, you know, in this country. But I think it's become a habit, charitable giving in a certain way. And I'm going to get myself in trouble with like every nonprofit organization in America.
We're good.
But getting your heart and body into it changes how you think for life. It changes how your kids see things. It changes how the people around you in your office see things. It's not like, oh, here's a Band-Aid and I don't have to touch or deal with any of this actual issues. How about I'm going to do the bake sale with people from an underserved community, and we're going to do it together, and we're going to have fun, and we're all going to make money, including me. Now, I can take that money and put it right back into donation if I want to, but like just getting involved again. We become so isolated. COVID didn't help, and it's easy to just give a credit card donation online, and you've kind of got rid of your conscience for the year, and you're kind of, like, but what about really connecting to people and starting to care? Because my philosophy has always been, unless you really understand what it's like for someone else, the whole walking in their shoes thing, like being on the ground with them, really talking to them, making friends with them, then you don't really understand the depth of the problem. If you go sit down and take lunch to a homeless person and bring a second one too, and you sit down and eat with them and talk to them for half an hour, you will have a very different perspective from that one event than you will by handing $10 on dough at the stoplight. So how do you get involved, safely in a way that can just like, hey, we're all humans. How can we support and love each other? And what's the point? And any one of us could be on the other end of that situation. Like Julie was saying before, any one of us with a different scenario, we could have been born in a different country, in a different time, in a different place. There's no way of knowing how that would have been. So learning from those around us is really, it's a priceless gift that we can give ourselves. It's not just for them. That's the other difference. It's for me to become a more involved citizen of the planet, right?
Yeah. I mean, Julie, do you have any giving back tip, and then I'll tell you my favorite one?
I think that no deed is ever left undone. I think that any small contribution is a contribution. So whether it's having awareness, giving a small donation, doing a little bit of time, like any little bit helps to pile it up. So I want to say for anyone that's thinking about, and they're like, I don't have time, that's fine. You don't have to give time. You could maybe just do something else, and all of those things add up. So don't think that you have to be boots on the ground to be able to give. You can do other things too.
Mm-hmm.
I also think small acts of kindness are wonderful. Like if you don't model the small acts for the younger generation, you'll never see them. Like holding the door for someone that has packages, or a mom with a stroller, or paying for the couple people in line when you go and grab your special treat of a coffee once a week, or a couple times a week. Do it once, like during the holiday season. Do you know how much, like, there might be someone that's really struggling that, like, you made their day?
I was in the bagel store last week, and there was this older woman, and she had on this like big, fabulous, shaggy coat and these big sunglasses. And I was like, "You look so fabulous today." And she was like, "Thank you." So I kind of taught my daughter. I was like, when you have a compliment, give it, because you never know what it's going to do for someone else's day. So I'm with you. I'm a complimentaholic, Ash.
I want us to answer Anne's question about what our favorite recipes are for the holidays. Anne, why don't you go first, and then Julie, and then I will be in the kitchen after Anne does her last minute.
Oh, gosh, which one I like the best? That is really hard.
But anyways,
I'm super traditional. So if I had to be honest, it's literally, I mean, how boring. Apple pie with full butter crust. That is my holiday delicacy. I could just live on that for the whole holiday.
Oh
that's okay.
I feel like my mother-in-law makes an amazing twice-baked potato, and I look forward to it every year.
Oh, that sounds.
And I have not mastered it myself, so I look forward to her potatoes.
Yeah. Geez, you guys are making me hungry, and I really wish I could eat any of that right now. My favorite, though, every year I look forward to, like, at Christmas, our Italian cookies that we have.
Ooh.
I don't eat it much anymore because I got sick on it one year. My cousin and I ate way too much of it. But it's piña lad. It's like these fried little pieces of dough that are in like this honey syrup, and it has yeah, it's an Italian thing, but it's so good. And I love it every year.
Wow. Okay, what's it called again?
My family calls it piña lad. Some people call it something else. I'll send you the thing.
I would love to like either see if I can find it or try to make it because I'm a pastry girl. That's my biggest weakness.
Yeah, I'll send you. It's kind of like a really fancy fried dough.
That's pretty
Even
awesome.
better. It's like more of a pastry dough. So, Anne, do you want to have any last thoughts to share with our audience before we go?
Oh, well, I just thank you to both of you and to the audience for letting me be part of your day. It's been really fun sharing my story and hopefully encouraging everyone. Ashley does so much amazing work around food, making a difference around kids. Julie as well, making an impact. So I think all of us can do something small. Again, it doesn't have to be huge, but you can do something small. Anything from paying for someone behind you to starting a social entrepreneurship or helping your kids start one. I mean, there's a great idea. Teaching a new way of thinking about empowering other people as opposed to only giving. Not that there's anything wrong with the gift, but how about empowering people to take charge of their own life and feel better about themselves is a huge gift. So just thank you for this opportunity. And I hope everyone enjoys the holidays, whether it's vegan or not. I could cook you something amazing. So.
And one of these days you can come back and cook with us. So,
yes.
Anne, thank you so much for coming on. Welcome to the E360 family and happy holidays to you.
You guys too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So I'm heading in the kitchen to make a fabulous holiday appetizer, whether it's for Thanksgiving or for Christmas or any time during this year when you're making a party, because honestly, it is probably one of the best things I've ever made. And it's super simple. So I will be right back after these. Welcome back. I'm in the kitchen. See, I get to cook this week.
What are you making, Ash?
So, probably going to make a mess in a little bit. You're going to have to sign off for me probably. So I'm making these goat cheese balls. But on the bottom is I made a sauce with leftover homemade cranberry sauce that I made. So I made it with fresh cranberries, and I'm one of those really annoying people that likes to strain it because I don't like the little pieces of cranberry in it. So this is just cranberries, pomegranate juice, and a little bit of cardamom and maple syrup cooked down.
Cardamom, can you refresh me on what that is?
So cardamom is kind of like a citrusy floral spice.
Okay.
It's a great alternative in cookies, and it's a little bit, has a hint. Oh, it smells so good.
Did you just stir those together, or how did you mash?
Yeah, what you do is you put it in a pot and you literally let it boil and bubble down, and you'll literally start hearing the cranberries start to split and pop. They actually start making noise almost like popcorn. And when they're starting to cook down, and then I take a potato masher and let it cook down until it gets reduced by like half.
Gotcha.
And then I strain it through until you get nice, smooth cranberry sauce.
I think cranberries are actually pretty easy to cook. I think that's like a misconception. Like they're a very easy thing.
It's really not that hard, but I suppose, one thing has to go on the holidays if you're really trying. So I also have a lovely pistachio here. So I'm going to chop up some pistachios, about 1/3 cup, and I'm rough chopping them with my knife, which I like to do this with a rough chop with a knife. If you have a grinder, usually they do them a little too fine because they're meant to be in a baking recipe, and that's not what we're doing. I'm making these little tiny goat cheese balls, and they're going to have microgreens with them too.
I am so excited for this, Ash. So excited.
It's so simple, and it takes just a little bit of time. And I'm going to put this in a bowl, and I'm realizing I forgot to grab a spoon, so walking right over here to grab a spoon. 1 minute, please.
No worries. Then she's going to stir them all up on there and see what happens.
So I just have some goat cheese here, and I'm going to take it out with a little teaspoon here.
I love goat cheese.
Like when you have a meatball, we're going to make it into like a little tiny meatball.
It's a cheese ball though, right?
Essentially, yes, I'm making a cheese ball. Yes, you can call me a little cheese ball today. I know you want to call me a name. I know it. I can hear it in your
No,
voice.
I was just more thinking you were like, it's like a meatball. I'm like, well, it's like a cheese ball.
Yeah, so we make it into our little meatball here, a little cheesy meatball. And we're going to drop it into this bowl that I have the chopped nuts in. And we're going to just roll it around. And there you go. Now, if you want, you can stick these back in the fridge to harden up, and it sticks really well. So, see? And the best part is it's green and red. So the whole thing ends up being green and red.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yes. See, I am creative when it comes to that. And the microgreens are green. So I'm going to make 3 of these because it looks so pretty on the plate with the 3.
Now, do the microgreens bake with them, or are they just garnish?
They're not even going to bake. They're just going to be like this. Like you could put them down and bake them, but I would do the whole log if you did that, if you were going to bake it down.
Okay. I like a warmed goat cheese, so I might pop mine in the air fryer or something, but those look delicious.
But
I'll
these
be
are
over later.
bites that you can just make together and put on the table. Like you can make them bite size, you can make them meatball form. And I'm going to have these little toothpicks I'm going to show you in a minute that I'm going to stick in them as a garnish. So I'm going to get my little last meatball going. See the perfect rolling technique?
I mean, you make a perfect ball, Ash. There's not much more I can say about that.
People have a tendency to try to squeeze it like really tightly with their hands and pack it too hard. And the idea is you want to just gently do it.
Yeah, because otherwise the goat cheese will kind of melt in your hands if you go too hard too. So you have to.
Yeah, and you just want to gently pack it down. You don't want to do it in, because if you're doing it with meat, then it's just way too hard. So I'm going to take my lovely cranberry sauce. And I have a platter here. First, stick this in our little balls so that they stand upright. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to drizzle it on the bottom of the plate. Now, if you take your spoon and you do it down just one, take it splash like that. So what I did is I put a splatter on one side of the plate, and then you just take the back of the spoon and slide it down, and it makes a really pretty thing.
It's amazing. You're up in your cooking game. That's like a drizzle right there. Like, that looks beautiful.
I do catering jobs. I do things really pretty.
At home, I know. I'm loving it.
So I put them all down the middle. My 3 little things. I'll show you what the final product looks like in a second.
When I do a drizzle, it's usually an accident. It's like, oh, I spilled it. So yours is gorgeous.
Grab a paper towel here. I'm being real because I'm doing this in real time and I'm making a mess in the process. So let's not get too much cheese all over my lovely microgreens. So this is just a citrus blend of microgreens. You can buy them at the grocery store. You can buy them from the local farmer's market. They're organic. They're lovely. And I'm going to just put a few of them on the plate. They're just these nice little things. They're wonderful to top things. And they look so pretty. And they have these lovely blends that have, this one has basil and some other ones like arugula. So it has a sweet, peppery bite to it. It's delicious. And in the end, it looks like this.
That's absolutely beautiful, Ashley. That's so beautiful.
And believe it or not, look how pretty that was. And it literally took us about 5 minutes.
I think that is going to make its way into my holiday rotation this year. That was delicious.
The longest thing that tastes is the cranberry sauce. And if you're doing it for a party or a holiday, you can do it a few minutes in advance. So it's totally perfect. Yeah, so awesome. I love that you guys love this. I'm so happy for Anne for joining us. Julie and I have to say goodbye for today. So make sure you go sign up for subscribe to our channel, right, Julie?
Yep. Come find us on Instagram. We want to hear from you. See you guys. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.